When Caoch O'Leary the blind piper wandered the lanes and byways of the Irish Midlands 200 years ago, he was not to know that he would still be fondly spoken of in the 21st century. But such is the power of the pen. In this case, it was the pen of the poet John Keegan that ensured that the memory of Caoch O'Leary would not easily be forgotten. It was in the Irish National Magazine on the 16th of May 1846 that Keegan's poem Caoch the Piper was published for the first time. By then, Caoch O'Leary's life had ended, and his remains had been laid to rest here in Cremog Graveyard in County Laois. From the poem's title we know that Caoch O'Leary was blind, or partially blind at least, as the Irish word caoch translates as blind. And we know too from the title that he was a piper. It's clear from the story told by Keegan's poem that Caoch O'Leary was a wandering piper who rambled from house to house in the company of his little dog Pinch, offering his music in return for food and a place to sleep. This was pre-famine Ireland, and our people were under the rule of the English monarchy. For a person with a disability, such as Caoch O'Leary, there were none of the state supports or allowances that we are accustomed to today. Living among a population of over 8 million people on the island of Ireland, he was left to fend for himself, and his music was his survival kit. Keegan's poem tells of Caoch O'Leary's arrival at Keegan's home when Keegan was a child, and of Caoch O'Leary's return visit there again 20 years later, where he passed away on the following day. The poem, when published in the Irish National Magazine, attracted little attention until it was republished in 1907 in Legends and Poems by John Keegan, which was compiled by John Cannon O'Hanlon. In the first half of the 20th century in particular, Caoch the Piper was popularised by its inclusion in national school textbooks throughout Ireland. It's worth mentioning too that James Joyce referred to Caoch O'Leary in Ulysses, quoting the line, "Does anybody hereabouts remember Caoch O'Leary?" Further new life was breathed into the poem in the final decades of the 20th century, when a beautiful recitation by Benedict Kiley was regularly aired on RTE radio on Ciaran McMahon's Sunday morning programme Caoch, and the poem was also included on a CD produced by RTE in 1995. Little else is known about Caoch O'Leary himself, such as his place of birth, his age at the time of his death, or whether he had any siblings, spouse or children. We can discern from the poem that he died at the then home of John Keegan, which was up a country laneway in Killaney, a couple of miles from here, near the village of Shanahoe, and that he was interred here at Cremog in the same graveyard as the Keegan family. As the poem recounts, Father James celebrated the Requiem Mass. This was Father James Dunn, a curate in the parish of Raheen in the 1840s. It was Father Dunn who performed the marriage ceremony in August 1846 of John Keegan and his bride Bridget Collins at Shanahoe Church, and he was later appointed parish priest in Mountrath, where he was the driving force behind the construction there of the present St. Fintan's Church. Let's recite and enjoy the poem Caoch the Piper by John Keegan. One winter's day long, long ago, when I was a little fellow, a piper wandered to our door, grey-headed, blind and yellow. And oh, how glad was my young heart, though earth and sky looked dreary, to see the stranger and his dog, poor Pinch and Caoch O'Leary. And when he stowed away his bag, cross-barred with green and yellow, I thought and said, in Ireland's ground there's not so fine a fellow. And Finian Burke and Shane McGee and Eily, Kate and Mary rushed in with panting haste to see and welcome Caoch O'Leary. O God be with those happy times. O God be with my childhood, when I, bareheaded, roamed all day bird nesting in the wildwood. I'll not forget those sunny hours However years may vary, I'll not forget my early friends, nor honest Caoch O'Leary. Poor Caoch Pinch slept well that night, and in the morning early he called me up to hear him play The Wind That Shakes the Barley. And then he stroked my flaxen hair and cried, God mark my dearie. And how I wept when he said, farewell, and think of Caoch O'Leary. And seasons came and went, and still old Caoch was not forgotten, although I thought him dead and gone and in the cold clay rotten. And often when I walked and danced with Eily, Kate and Mary, we spoke of childhood's rosy hours and prayed for Caoch O'Leary. Well, 20 summers had gone past, and June's red sun was sinking, when I, a man, sat by my door, of 20 sad things thinking. A little dog came up the way, his gait was slow and weary, and at his tail a lame man limped. 'Twas Pinch and Caoch O'Leary. Old Caoch, but how woe begone! His form is bowed and bending, his fleshless hands are stiff and wan. Time is even blending the colours on his threadbare bag, and Pinch is twice as hairy and thin spare as when first I saw himself and Caoch O'Leary. God's blessing here, the wanderer cried. Far, far be hell's black viper. Does anybody hereabouts remember Caoch the Piper? With swelling heart I grasped his hand. The old man murmured, Dearie, are you the silky-headed child that loved poor Caoch O'Leary? Yes, yes, I said. The wanderer wept as if his heart was breaking. And where of Vic Macree, he sobbed, is all the merry making I found here 20 years ago. My tale, I sighed, might weary, enough to say there's none but me to welcome Caoch O'Leary. Vo, 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 the old man cried, and wrung his hands in sorrow. Pray, lead me in, Ashtor Macree, and I'll go home tomorrow. My peace is made, I'll calmly leave this world so cold and dreary, and you shall keep my pipes and dog, and pray for Caoch O'Leary. With Pinch I watched his bed that night. Next day his wish was granted. He died, and Father James was brought, and the Requiem Mass was chanted. The neighbours came, we dug his grave near Eily, Kate and Mary, and there he sleeps his last sweet sleep. God rest you, Caoch O'Leary.